for the highly anticipated musical Wicked. And what do I think about this film? Well, before Dorothy ever landed in Oz, there was Wicked. For casual audiences who probably don't know without spoiling, Wicked is actually a prequel to The Wizard of Oz and is told by the point of view of Elphaba Throb, an outcasted woman born with green skin and magical powers who attends Shiz University. There, she actually forms an unlikely friendship with Glenda, and the film actually reveals to be the true origin story of the Wicked Witch of the West. No, this is not another Hollywood-made film. This is actually based off the 2003 Tony Award-winning Broadway of the same name, although actually, the Broadway was actually inspired by the book. So yeah, the book came first, then the musical, and then the movie. Crazy how that works. Just real quick guys, if you like what you see here, please give this video a like and share, and even hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel so much to do what I love, but most importantly is to provide y'all the best movie reviews out there and content creation for the Obsessive Movie Geek. But anyways, back to the video. Now, I've seen some of my favorite YouTube critics online reviewing Wicked, and they all tend to say the same thing, which is that they've never really had any knowledge about the musical prior, and that they're really just not fond of musicals in general. And honestly, I get it, musicals are not for everybody, and even though I'm a YouTube critic and I have all full respect to them, but there's just one thing, I'm not them. I've said before here on this channel, theater arts was a major part of my life growing up in high school and some of my few years in college, and I even had the privilege to go and watch the Broadway version when it came here to Houston, and I just love the entire story, the musical numbers. Even back then, I had prior knowledge knowing that they were going to make a full-length feature film about this musical, and knowing what I knew back then, I felt like had they got everything right, I knew that this film had a lot of potential to be something special. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I was in the minority group where I believe that I was one of the very few, 1 out of 1,000, that I was very much hyped for this film. The marketing looked great, the trailers are good, but that doesn't always guarantee a great film. I'm still going to be that person who's going to put on his critical thinking hat and look at this as a film before anything else. And yes, I'm willing to admit when a musical movie is good, it's good. However, if it is a big steaming pile of flying monkey crap, then it belongs in my kitten's litter box. Well, just as I gave you that little teaser in the video, here's my final answer. I can say this with full confidence that Wicked is a breathtaking cinematic spectacle. Oh my god, this is actually one of the best films of the year. It is just that damn near perfect. So what did they get right about this film? Really? Almost everything. Director Jon Chu brings to us a very faithful adaptation from the source material. It is such a well-made film with gorgeous looking costume designs, iconic musical numbers that are breathtakingly pleasing. You've probably seen this shit already on TikTok and Twitter, but I'm actually one of those guys that I have to force myself not to sing along with the music. But then again, I will admit I am not gonna interrupt fans, so don't worry about that. So don't leave hate in the comment section. If you're actually one of those extremists who's trying to hear the lyrics be 100% accurate note after note, don't get dramatic. The actors do honor the song, but if you listen very carefully, they do change some of the notes and rhythm just very slightly, just so they can differentiate themselves from the Broadway version. But it doesn't take it away too far that it disrespects the source. Oh, and there's a lot of real set design and less reliance on CGI. It is only used when it's necessary. We live in a world today where a majority of the big blockbuster films are just so heavily reliant on actors being in front of a green screen with very minimum props and backgrounds that this is just such a huge relief to go back to old-fashioned. And I get it from a business perspective. It does save a lot of money, but there's just something so majestic about real set designs and filming on location. It just feels more alive and authentic to it. The performances are phenomenal. It is perfectly casted, and the standouts go to the trio of Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, and Jonathan Bailey. Cynthia as Elphaba pretty much brings so much humanity to our main protagonist, who's pretty much been an outsider all her life just because she's being judged on how she looks. You legit feel for this character throughout this entire film, and it is such a complete tearjerker. There's this one scene in particular that involves a dance sequence in the ballroom. And I don't think there's actually been a film this year that got me on a high level emotions, and it even got me silent at the same time. It is just that damn beautiful. Just thinking about that scene again, that was actually probably in one of my top favorite moments in the entire film. Also, when Cynthia sings, there is so much emotions implied to the lyrics that she just understands the character of Elphaba. I'm just a little shocked about this, but Ariana Grande is going to be a surprise standout for many people out there. I knew she was going to be good in the film, I just didn't think that she was going to be that good. I knew she was playing Glenda for over a year, but for casual audiences who don't do this research like I do, I'm always hearing this same reception about, oh, Ariana Grande, what? No, she's a pop star, she's a singer, she can't act. Unless you really haven't done your history homework, I think a lot of people forget that Ariana Grande was first popular as an actress because she was on Nickelodeon with Victorious. I happened to grow up watching that show, and I actually did a little bit of research and found out that Ariana Grande does have experience in Broadway. And in this film, it pretty much shows. I did not see Ariana Grande, the pop star. I actually saw her become Glenda. She talked, walked, acted, had the voice like the Broadway Glenda. It just pretty much shows that how versatile she really is. And that was basically just a big eyes wide performance. And even at the very beginning of the film, she plays this bratty asshole. But the way how Ariana portrays Glenda, it just has this sort of charm to it. Like, she's like one of those likable assholes, if that makes sense to you. However, her character does evolve over the course of the film, and you just come to love Glenda for what she is, because we all know how Glenda's gonna be. She was hilarious. She delivered the lines right. I got actually a good, warm reception. When I went to my theater, they were laughing at her jokes and her performances, and for the right reasons. If there's really any doubters out there about Ariana performing as Glenda, really give this film a chance, because she is just fantastic. Duo relationship between Ariana and Cynthia is tremendous. Probably the best on-screen chemistry I've seen this year. I'm gonna say this right now, they've done the characters justice, and they've made Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth proud of what they've accomplished. And that's not easy. I didn't have that much knowledge on who Jonathan Bailey was prior to this film, but I can tell just seeing him on screen, he is going to make a name for himself, because anytime he is on screen, he has very minimum screen time. That's not his fault, and that's not the filmmakers either. That's really just how the character was written in the Broadway version. But anytime he ever does show up on screen, he has full-on stage presence and charisma that is just going to capture anybody's attention. I say this film is nearly perfect only because I do have a little bit of negative constructive criticism about it, and it's really not that noticeable, but at the same time I can't help it because I gotta be realistic about it. But it's just gonna be short to the point. It's the CGI. The CGI is not bad. It's not like MCU bad. No, that's a whole different story. But I do see at times, like if I look at the sequences like on the animal characters or just what's happening in the scene, it's a little bit too glossy and it just runs too smoothly that it kind of takes me just a little bit out, but not like, that's just me being a little nitpicky. I've heard from some sources, including friends of mine, criticizing that the film's runtime was too long. Sure, it's basically 2 hours and 40 minutes, but it never feels like that. I think the film clocks around 2 hours and 40 minutes, but reality, I don't feel it like that. Mostly like 2 hours and 10 minutes at most. That's how it felt. But I think that really has to do with retention. If you can make a film that's engaging towards your audience, then it's just like the old saying, time flies when you're having fun. In case some of you are barely finding out that this is actually a two-parter film, which the first film that I'm reviewing right now only covers the first act of the Broadway, and we're not going to have part 2, which is until next year, 2025. But really, it feels like its own self-contained film, which I don't think a lot of films can be able to pull that off, because even though it's leading up to the next film, it still feels like it has its own beginning, middle, and end. A whole story is completed, and damn. Now, if you really want to overthink it, it's kind of like setting it up like a real Broadway experience, because you're walking into the theater, you sit down, you enjoy the first act of the performance, it cuts off, and then goes into intermission for about like 15-20 minutes, and then you come back for Act 2 to finish off the story. Although this one is going to be a 1-year-long intermission. God, this is gonna be something. I've seen a lot of films here in 2024, but I think a lot of them, what they seem to lack is that they can't seem to accomplish by ending off the film on a strong note. And this film did it the last 10 minutes. And the last 10 minutes is probably one of the greatest endings I've ever seen in a movie musical. And not just that, I'm actually thinking that this is probably in my top 10 greatest movie musicals of all time. For my final score, I'm going to give Wicked a 9.5 out of 10. But wait, I'm even going as far as to predict my Oscar nominations. And for that, I am going to say for Best Film Editing, Best Cinematography, Best Costume Design, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Production Design, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Supporting Actress for Ariana Grande, Best Leading Actress for Cynthia Erivo, Best Director for John Chu, and finally, Best Picture. It is just such a huge surprise how movie musicals can still be into the mainstream limelight that I thought that was like ancient history. But it does look like Wicked is here to stay and is definitely defying gravity.